Hello, dear Mindfulness Collective. This right here, right now, is the joy of being a live stream. Come to you live from Brooklyn, New York. Lovely to be here with you. We're very delighted to have our old friend, the drilling, back. The building is under construction, and rarely does the drilling occur. Except I think someone is a follower of this particular stream, because it seems that they start right when we go live. So folks, lovely as always to be here with you. Let me know, where are you coming from? I'm here in BK. Lovely. What is going on, folks? What is new? What's happening? What is going on with you? We're going to be meditating today, which is very exciting news. And we're going to meditate for about 25 minutes. It's going to be fun. Good times. Let us know where you're coming from as you begin to join the stream here. And we will have a little fun. We'll find out what's going on. We'll find out what is new. And it'll be good. The premise today was to do a meditation similar to what we did on Monday, to look at difficult emotion and see if we can find how we can make it feel less difficult. And I want to stay open, so if folks have a strong feeling of a different direction, then that's fine too. I'm open to switching that up a little bit. Oh, babe, while you're there, will you close that little flap for sound? Thanks. If you can reach it. Okay. So, folks, great. So we're going to be meditating for about 25 minutes. I have half an urge to start really quickly, so all the people who tend to show up a few minutes later caught, but I don't want to be too unkind, too surprising here, not to be too original. Okay, so I think we're going to stick with what the plan was unless somebody says otherwise. Jean, morning from Brooklyn. And of course we have our alternative, our Freestyle Friday, which we can do whatever we want. Julius, welcome. Oh, Julie from Vienna, AT, Vienna AT. I don't know. What does that mean? As soon as you say it, I'll be like, oh, of course. It's 5 p.m. here, so we're already done with the drilling in my house. Well, that's good. Nice. We'll let them know, actually. We'll let them know, hey, listen, it's 5 p.m. somewhere else. You're going to need to cut it out. Hey, it's Tomlin here from India. Welcome. I'm doing pretty well. Glad to see you here. How are you? How are you doing? So, excellent. So, folks, we are excited to be jumping in. We'll do 25 minutes, and I'm going to encourage folks to sit in stillness. And, of course, because we're going to be dealing with potentially some challenging emotion, maybe for you, maybe not, then we will, I'm going to make sure folks know that they can move and adjust if they need to. And we'll work the drilling into the meditation, because that is the only way to deal with distractions, is to not have to fight them. Oh, Nick here from Gothenburg, Sweden. Great, you're off the train. You're back where you're supposed to be. Yeah, we're in the same time zone. Nice. Oh, Brian here from New Orleans. Good to be here. Great to have you here, Brian. I think we saw you at the end of the last live stream. I can't remember. Let us know if this is your first time here. It's great to have you, as always. P.S. I have a big, this is what we can do for the second half. I have this big, exciting, interesting interview for a podcast in the next day or so, and they gave me sort of a general idea of the questions that they're going to be asking, not exactly, but general, and maybe I'll just go over those now so I can smooth up my, delivery for everybody. Have some fun. Just to get to find out about my background and that kind of thing. Okay, so folks, here we go as things unfold. Okay, so folks, we're going to practice here for a solid 25 minutes. If that sounds daunting, don't you worry, it's going to be good times. We are going to practice in stillness, but if you need to move, you can feel free to do so. Just make sure to adjust slowly, carefully in this way. And what else? Beep up is excuse me. Oh, somehow it's much louder when I speak down here than when I speak up here. Does this microphone have some sort of, is it better if I'm talking across the microphone? Okay, so we'll try that. arrangement out today, see how it sounds. I feel like I can hear the bass better. Okay, the point of it all is that we are going to be practicing for 25 minutes, during which time we'll have lots of fun. And if it sounds impossible, don't worry. You can do it. We'll be here with you to get through it. It'll be fun. Okay, folks, so finding that nice comfortable position that you can maintain for the duration of the sit. And when you're ready, hello, 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 hello. Oh, I like the sound. Hello, 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 hello. I like the sound, I suppose, here. Okay, excellent. I think I can hear more detail than other folks can, but okay. When you're ready, we will begin. Ah, Rory joining us from Kingston. Okay, now we're ready. Okay, ready to start. What's up, Rory? As always. What's up, Rory? Good to see you. Rory and I have a special, we have a high five tradition. High five to Rory. Welcome here. All right, folks. So finding a nice comfortable position that you can maintain for the duration of the sit. It'll be 25 minutes. If you're new to meditation or anything of the kind, let us know here. Just seeing folks popping in. Make sure to let us know, because we will rearrange the practice specifically for folks who are new. But if not, if you're an old practice meditator, then you can just follow along. Okay, so finding a nice still position that you can maintain for the duration of the practice. And when you're ready, we will begin. Little glitch there. Okay, we'll begin. Lots of interesting outside sounds. My dog is making sounds it normally doesn't, so I think we'll have to work that into the practice as well, but hopefully she quiets right down. Beginning by taking a few comfortable deep breaths and just feeling the body rise and fall. As we physically relax the body, letting go of the major muscle groups, the neck and shoulders, the arms and hands, the upper chest and back, the belly and lower back, the hips and the legs, letting go of these large muscle groups as well as the areas of the body that are very subtle, potential micro tensions often held in the place where the muscle meets the bone. So we're relaxing at the level all the way down to the bone. As though the bones themselves could release the muscles. And the mind will tend to zoom into small areas of sensation. So we're going to use our awareness to hold the greater collection of all of the body's sensations. So rather than any particular sensation or gathering sensations one by one, getting an overall sense of everything the body can detect in this particular moment. This is a softer perspective. Less detail, more overall. And because this is a softer perspective, it might tilt us towards sleepiness. So we're staying with the preciseness, the uniqueness of this set of sensations in this moment. The way in which these sensations can be experienced as bright, as rich, and this will tend to wake the mind. And so we're beginning to settle into awareness. This is this large overall capture, in this case of the body's sensations in general. Or for some it might be easy to capture all sense data that's arising, all seeing, hearing, and feeling. Whichever is easier. Just this soft snapshot of the overall experience. Beginning to treat this awareness, this overall experiencing, as a kind of home. As something we can begin to rely on. Notice that we may want things to be different or be annoyed or frustrated by experiences, but the awareness doesn't need anything to be different. It's simply aware. And at any given moment, if the system begins to prefer something, wanting something to be different, becoming fixated or annoyed, that's not a problem. That's nature. just noticing that detail among all the other sensations, finding our way back to this neutral, welcoming awareness. And attending to the welcoming quality of awareness can be a powerful way to not need to fight any distraction, to not need to resist what's occurring around us. And from a small context, distraction is a problem, something to fight with. Whereas from this larger context, all sensation, even our resistance to distraction, our desire for difference or wanting something to change, all of this is simply nature. And cultivating a sense of abiding in this way of relating to the world. What if this open, welcoming experience was the home, was the place that we've been searching for? The mind always wants something to be different. What if we found the thing we were ultimately searching for was a place where nothing needed to be different? So we're slowly training the body and mind to accept this as home, as a refuge. A place where nothing is needed of us. Even if cravings and needs and frustrations arise within us, that's fine. That's simply part of the fabric of nature from this larger perspective. And so this is a perfect place to rest. If at any point we find the preceding meditation is challenging, simply coming back. This kind, welcoming awareness as a kind of home. And from this perspective, from this overall experiencing, without needing to collapse down or zoom in, simply knowing that difficult emotions are something that humans experience. They're one of the flavors or constellations that our senses can arrange themselves within. Sometimes even the mention of challenging emotions will bring them to the foreground. Noticing if we've lost connection with this larger experiencing, and the mind is simply, through force of habit, shrunk down to the scale of these emotions. It's not a problem. Just finding our way back to this open, kind abiding. Noticing if we get pulled away into the sensations of the emotion, into any narratives related to the emotion, or perhaps a mind state or a kind of mental filter associated with any challenging emotion may take over. And if that's the case, we can either pause the practice, allowing the body to adjust and move. Sometimes this is all that's needed, a little bit of physical adjustment. Doing this mindfully can be a helpful way to change the patterning. Find our way back to this welcoming awareness. Or if it's available, simply reconnecting with this kind awareness. Often as we touch into challenging emotion, it can become difficult to find this kind awareness, in part because we may be unconsciously suppressing. And awareness doesn't like to be part of our experience, it likes to take in all of our experience. So allowing whatever we might be pushing down, pressing away, just letting that be part of the overall field of experiencing. Noticing if this makes it easier to reestablish connection with this kind awareness. So our main area of practice is connecting with this kind awareness. And, if possible, cultivating a sense of abiding or satisfaction that comes from this connection. Any sense of relief. Simply resting in this open experiencing. We don't need to bring challenging emotion to the foreground. We simply don't suppress. Don't need to deny that challenging emotion may arise or may be arising. If we get pulled into the gravitational force of challenging emotion, that's fine. We can ask the body-mind, where is this pulling from? Knowing that it's pulling from this overall large experiencing. If emotion appears to be intense for part of our system, again, we can pause or simply change the meditation, even ending it if that would be supportive. Or we can recognize as well that this is only part of the system, that the intensity is only being experienced by a section of the overall sense sphere. Feeling the relief that this intensity is not, in fact, everywhere. And while we'll end the formal practice when the bell goes silent, know that that time is not now. Staying with the practice, staying in stillness, allowing a tiny bit of light to enter the eyes, eventually allowing the eyes to rest on a single point as they fully open. Again, noticing that whatever intensity may be arising for us is not arising everywhere. Our visual experience is likely not part of the area where we feel any challenging emotion. And feeling the relief that this experience is not challenged in this way. And as we sit here with our eyes open, as we do much of our day, recognizing that this practice is not meant to be relegated to the cushion. This is a practice of life. Letting this particular moment be the great teacher that shows us how we might bring this practice into every aspect of our life. Okay, so making any adjustments, you need to allow the body to be comfortable. I always like a good upstretch. If you have any sleeping limbs, you can readjust those. It's funny with sleeping limbs, sometimes you discover that they're sleeping. No, my limbs are fine. And then you discover, oh, this one is quite asleep. Excellent. So folks, this is how we roll here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to beep up, 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 beep up. Encourage folks, if you've practiced with part of this meditation, you know, it's challenging to get ourselves to practice meditation. I know that from personal experience. So we want to maximize the benefits. One of the ways we do that is simply by writing down what our experience was. This is actually a way of compounding what occurred for us. So what I'm going to encourage is to take a moment to write down what that experience was like for you. Now, you don't have to do this if you don't want. However, highly, highly recommend. And it not only, I think it's also helpful because we think of our practice as being very solo and isolated, and that can compound into a sense of, you know, solo exploration and solo, you know, alienation to some degree. And actually, meditation historically is always done in a community. It's always done in a relationship. So by externalizing what happened for you, this is one way to, you know, talk about what happened in your practice, and extend your experience to other people. This is how we share our internal experience. So I'm going to recommend that. And if you don't feel like typing, but do feel like sharing your experience, I'm popping the Zoom here in the chat. If you want to chat on the Zoom, meaning we'll be able to hear you, we'll be able to see you, let me know. Jump in here. It's always fun to have a little visitor and talk about your experience, your personal challenge or interest. Also, any challenges that are coming up in people's lives right now. I think it's easy to say, you know, hey, life is going okay, things are whatever, they are what they are, but we often forget to just talk about challenges, and if I can help, I'll see what I can do. But just know that meditation is not something that happens on the cushion. Meditation is a relationship to the world that is ongoing. So I will recommend folks to any challenges, let me know. Let's see, Jean, welcome here. Jean says, a few pieces of mundane feedback. I really enjoyed the feeling of experiencing the body sensation as one whole thing rather than each individual sensation. It is highly satisfying, I find. Is basically we're talking about the difference between attention and awareness. Awareness connecting with the overall experience. It can be just very lovely, soft, and awareness is sort of described and known for its it doesn't need anything to be different. So if we can soak into that quality, which is part of what we did today, it can be very, very satisfying. It can feel awesome to just be like, oh my God, like nothing's needed of me, nothing's needed of the world. And there can be an incredible sense of relief there. So that's great. I was able to sit really still today. That's excellent, because I know that's something that you had, which, like you say, which is a breakthrough for me. Excellent. And again, it's a goal, but we don't want to, if we need to move because there's too much emotion or this kind of thing, we want to be very careful with that. We want to be cautious, being trauma informed in that way. I also felt my muscles tighten slightly when you said the meditation is almost over, but don't move yet. Yeah, that's actually really good to notice, because one reason why I really emphasize and elongate the end of the practice in that way is that we can, again, separate practice from our life. And that's highly problematic if we want to have a life that's richly informed by meditation. So part of it is to notice that transition. Notice that when, okay, we're about to end the meditation, the whole system gets ready to jump into action, like just, okay, let's just erase everything we've had experience with. Let's get into the gear of like, go, go, go. And by not doing that, by doing the opposite of that, it actually trains the system that this go experience is just another sensation, and in this transition we can bring part of the meditation with us, which is, that's how we learn to bring the meditation into every aspect of our life in this way. Jean says, overall though, feeling the kind awareness today. Lovely. Excellent. Today was our third installment of this process of finding ways to make intense or difficult, challenging emotion feel less intense or less difficult. And today we're using this comparison of the satisfying nature of awareness and then allowing the emotion to be there. What I noticed, and I brought this up in the meditation, was that at some point it wasn't even that I could how do I say this? Basically, it was sort of like the disavowal of the emotion. Like I could either zoom into the emotion, or I'd feel it and it would take up all of my awareness, or I could connect with the sort of kind awareness, but it seemed like there was sort of nothing in between. It was hard to hold the kind awareness and let the emotion be there. And the way that I did that was by noticing the disavowal, noticing the part of me that was like, no, I don't want to feel this. And I could feel that, and that gave me sort of access to the emotion within this larger field. And I really like that experiential comparison between the fact that the intensity, which was arising for me, I'm talking about quite old emotion, this is somatically held emotion, was not everywhere, which it tends to tell the system that it is everywhere. Very satisfying to observe that. And of course, I want to mention, it's totally possible that people here were not experiencing any emotion whatsoever, or were experiencing very little, and that's fine. We call that the emotion of peace. So let me know if that was your experience. I'd be very interested to hear that, because we don't want to assume, just because we're doing a series on challenging emotion, that that's what you're experiencing. Any experience is valid. Nate says, I really connected with the positivity today. Lovely. That's lovely that was available. Satisfying is a better description than positivity. Yeah. And I think that contentedness, satisfaction, these are... in a way, it's like, I like to think of it like relief. That's part of what it is there's a way in which we can connect with that welcoming neutrality that's just like, like I don't have to be anybody, I don't have to do anything, I don't have to perform in some way, I don't need to fight the world, it doesn't feel like the world is fighting me. It's just, I can reside there and connect with that experience. And the thing is that anything that we pay attention to long enough is going to expand in our awareness. If we pay attention to some resentment, we're like, this person, God damn it, they always do this thing. The mind will, sink into that until it completely takes over our view. Well, that same tendency will work for having a more fulfilling life. So if we can find that experience of relief in that, open awareness, the more we do that, the easier it is to access. And then it just becomes part of the fiber of our experience. We're sort of feeling overwhelmed, we're looking around, and while our mind might be getting pulled into some sort of difficult experience, we can also know, oh look, the difficulty is here, and I know this kindness that exists with it. And we start to learn to not be pulled into the gravitational force so easily. Jean says, I felt physically agitated and uncomfortable at certain times, but it was a body sensation not associated with particular thought. Great. That's really good clarity. I just stayed still and breathed. Deaf felt peaceful. Excellent. Yeah, and that's I think something that's I think that's helpful to know. You said not associated with any difficult emotion. Yeah, all of these things are just sensations. They're not a problem, and it's a lovely and powerful experience to know that if we can disaggregate them, if we can, to some degree observe them in their natural habitat to some degree without having them, take over, it can be very, very relieving, very freeing in that way. Excellent, excellent. So folks, tell me, what else? Ding dang it, what the hell? What else is going on? Okay, let me open this thing. I'm curious if this would be of interest. So I have this, what I'll say is a big interview. It's an interview coming. And they had a bunch of good questions, so I'm going to see if I can look at these. I'll let you know about when the interview airs. Okay, they said, talking about my origin story, various concepts of meditation that we've talked about, how people would start meditating. That's a great question. The benefits and different parts of the path, the multiple self model, etc. Okay, so I'll give people a brief thing. If you don't know this already, then it's great to be able to share this with you. I'll get into this in a minute. So Nick says, was really hazy today. Great clarity. Also, P.S., great to hear, we don't want to hear just positive, oh, my meditation was lovely and excellent. We're human beings. The mind will be bouncing all over the place today, had a lot of obsessive thoughts, blah, 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 any of these things. Very important to hear. So great vulnerability, saying that you're hazy, very hazy today. So zooming out almost put me to sleep instantly. So I can't remember any specifics. Okay, great. And people think that if they can't remember, that means there was something wrong, or if they're lost or distracted, there's something wrong. The fact that they know that they were lost is more clarity than just being lost. So, okay, I was lost at these times. It creates a incentive within the system to know when we're lost, which is excellent. Felt peaceful. Specifics felt peaceful overall, but may confuse it with dullness. Well, dullness can feel very peaceful, and part of it is to take out the part that pulls us into unconsciousness and enjoy the part that feels very relaxing and subtle and soft in this way. Somewhat alive dullness. Yeah, just pay attention to the part that's bright and alive. Okay, so my origin story. Some people might already know this, but I grew up on this little hippie farm in Rhode Island, and I was raised by all sisters and my mom, and that was very important for me. Having been raised by all women, it really felt like it affected the way that I viewed the world. Also in part because I didn't quite know it at the time, but it was a very conservative town that I was in, more conservative than we were, certainly, with our sort of hippie ways. And so I saw that there was this sort of, it seemed like there was this kind of discontentedness in society that was managed by a kind of forcefulness, people being, what was I going to say, people trying to things have to stay a certain way, and if they don't stay that way, then something's wrong and things need to be a certain way. So a lot of my childhood was based on questioning that, just by the nature of sort of being this hippie, feminist little kid. And also a major part of that was that my upbringing was pretty tumultuous. My dad was crazy. He was this super intelligent dude, but also super kind of dysfunctional in a way. He was a electrical engineer for nuclear submarines, which, if you don't know, is not something you just sort of walk into. He's like it was very astute, but he had come from this total hippie background where there was total hippie background where he had been like growing acres of pot and this kind of thing, and then went into like working for Raytheon. So it was a very stark contrast. And so these big contrasts were kind of part of the way I grew up, is noticing these big differences and, what does it mean to be in the world? That was a big sort of experiential question, is what is this whole life that we're living? And it's something I grappled with and still grapple with experientially all the time. And I grew up sort of being aware of meditation and wasn't really doing it so much until I turned in my early teens and became interested in this idea of continuous meditation, which for me, the origin of that was in Zen, although there's other traditions that do it. And it was this idea of holding a question in the mind continuously all throughout the day. And the various practices that I became interested in over the years were encompassing. They weren't just something I did on the cushion and then, ignored for the rest of the day. They were ways of relating to reality. And I became very interested in art making when I was in my teens as well. And my path for a while was, practicing through art making, paying very, very close attention to my experiential world, trying to translate that through the hand, watching the mind produce all of these layers of distraction and this kind of thing. And that was the way that I practiced. And that's what I did for many years, and went to college for fine art. In college, I, did what I did. I sort of had my ups and downs, etc., but was very, very, very hardworking and really wanted to do something that mattered and affected the world. And I thought a lot about how what I'm doing will affect and change the people who are interacting with it. It was sort of my general drive was pretty utopian, and I really wanted to change the world. And that's still something that to me is very important, is to do things and take actions that affect the world and support and help people. I think looking back, I realized one of the challenges was that there was so much abstraction, meaning I had to imagine like, oh, what's the effect of red on a person, and how does that going to work when they walk into the room from this direction, and these kind of things. Whereas with meditation, I can teach the same material. I can teach what is abstraction, what is the experience of self and world dissolving, where the definitions of what we experience as reality can be rewritten. But I can just ask you what's going on in your mind. You can give a report. You can tell me specifically. And so what that means is it feels like I'm skipping the middleman. Now aesthetics kind of disappear a little bit, but for me, we have a new follow here. Thank you so much for following here at Awake. Thank you so much. Nice to have you here. So for me, I always had this fantasy about like a jazz group being able to play the same thing but have it be totally different each time. And I didn't know how could you do that with artwork, because they're sort of frozen in time and space. So I became very interested in performance art, this kind of thing, conceptual art, and ways that things could be reiterated each time they exist. And all of this ended up playing out into the way that I related to meditation. So fast forward, 9/11 occurs. It was completely crushing. I was like, this is the end of me, or it was so hard for me. And I realized I had to pursue something either in the direction of kind of spiritual growth or like self-destruction. There was no like in between. And luckily, for me, it feels pretty lucky, I chose, sobriety, which, using substances was the sort of one of the coping mechanisms that I had sort of used throughout my youth, and sobriety, and just pursuing spiritual growth, meditation, morality as a spiritual path. And that was completely transformative for me. That was the center, and kind of is the center of my world since then. So we're talking like way back, 2004 is kind of when really everything switched. And I came in contact with a teacher named Shinzen Young, who many of you know, who gave a very powerful explanation of how all these different pieces fit together. Because for me, it was also, I wanted to understand the overall networked relationship of these different practices, the way that humans exist through these contemplative practices was very powerful for me. So that was sort of another thing that really made my practice really take off in that way. And along the whole time, I'm sort of informally teaching, because people are asking, how do I do this, etc. So I began to train with Shinzen. I began to train through all these various, different organizations, cutting my teeth, running classes and this kind of thing. And then it over time just became the center of my world. And that's what I do today. And, my wife and I have 2 meditation businesses, one that's been going for a while, one that's, unfolding as we speak. Could be very interesting, details to come. And so that's basically my origin story. Next question here is how would a person get started in meditation? It's tough, my recommendation is always the simplest one, or simplest to me, which is do the 15 guided meditations that I recommend. They're listed here in the chat if you're watching. Let's see, I think it's exclamation point 15. That should pop up these 15 guided meditations. So if someone's starting meditating, I'm like, do these 15 meditations. These are the structural, keys to really, really unpacking our experience. This is the sort of foundational material. So I typically will recommend those. And also, I was talking to Jean about this recently, the other day, but is to get a daily practice. And even if that means, this might sound ludicrous, but getting a 1 second a day practice and committing to that and saying, no matter what happens, I'm going to do 1 second a day. And that is one of the quickest ways to transform our practice, because it doesn't become about like, how do I get myself to meditate? It's very hard to imagine someone who does not have 1 second of time. And then it becomes a matter of extending that. And the impact of 1 second a day is going to be dramatically more than 0 seconds a day, even though it seems like it would be barely the case. So that's generally what I recommend for folks. And then it becomes a question in practice of like, what's important to you? What's your goal? What is your, what would you like to see in your own transformation? and getting clear about that, writing that down, looking at that, and ideally finding someone who can help guide you through that, or a group, or a set of practices that can do that and focus on your particular interest or goal, this kind of thing. That's generally what I recommend for how does one begin a meditation practice. Next question here. Benefit of different paths. Oh my God, that's such a heavy question. Before we get into that question, benefits of various paths, we have a bunch of comments here. Nate responding to Gene. I don't know if this is for public consumption or not. I've come across an agitated body sensation like that a lot. It's useful to zoom out. Okay, so Nate has some suggestion here. Zoom out to the awareness of the body. Yes. Physically relax. Excellent. Gene, thanks. Still learning the zooming part. Yeah, and just know that it doesn't have to be like a thing where you intentionally zoom out. You can just be interested in a larger set of experiences. That's one way of just letting the system zoom out on its own. Finding the breathing, as I mentioned. Excellent. Kiki Maxi, welcome. Nice to have you here. Artie Casadio, welcome. Very nice to have you here. Hello. And if it's anyone's first time here, very important, let us know. First time here or first time meditating, we would love to know. It helps us greet you in a particular way. And then At Awake says, liked how you previously described the spillover of beneficial states into everyday life, into the fiber, a huge motivator for practice. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's not so interesting to have this little bubble that happens in the morning and then, life exists. For me, it's much more interesting to have a relationship between that intensity and then having it disperse throughout my everyday life experience. That's how I've done it, and that's how I like to practice, in large part because it makes it, it creates a significant opportunity for growth, which for me, I like growing in the directions that are important to me, like growing towards my values. Okay, benefits of different paths. Well, the first thing we'd have to talk about, if we're going to talk about the benefits of different paths, is what paths are we talking about? So real quick, in the chat here, mention any paths that you find interesting, that you are sort of curious about, and I can talk about, if I know them, if I'm familiar with them, the benefits of those particular paths, if those are arising. Because I think that's part of the question, is which paths are important to you. I can say, like, in a simple way, like something like TM, Transcendental Meditation, which is very popular, or popular in certain circles. The benefit of it is that it's very simple, and I think there's a great benefit to that. It's just, you do one thing, you say a mantra, you sort of hold your awareness in one way. It's not meant to, there's no instruction that is a sort of set of progressive things. Like, okay, you've learned this skill, now go to the next skill, which is the way that I teach. So because of that simplicity, it has a lot of room for just ease of practice. There's not a sense of, okay, I've got to learn more, I've got to kind of, develop these skills. However, the potential danger, not the inherent danger, but the potential danger is that people are just sort of floating and they just do this thing, and there's something that maybe is a little off and they don't notice it, but there's no sense of development. There's no sense of, okay, it's going to be like this, and then once you get to this place, look for these things and don't get distracted over here or over here, make sure you're going in this direction. And the question might be, well, which direction is that? Is that the direction towards awakening? Is it the direction towards, better relationships or more inner fulfillment or, outer connection, these kind of things? And that's why I go back to this thing about your values. If you can get clear on your values, then we can know which direction to take a person, because it really is omnidirectional. And that's one of the challenges. Maybe that's sort of the greater answer is, really, when you get into it, meditation is fully omnidirectional. So how could you ever decide to go in any direction? It is, meditation, you can go anywhere. You can become better at playing basketball or video games, or you can become, a sharper debater, or anything that you want can be, meditation can be a springboard for that. So which direction do you go? And that has a lot to do with a path. And the path is often defined by a certain, religion or group or sort of tradition. But the question then becomes, is that the thing that you want? And I think that there's one value of just going with the tradition, in part because it's likely been developed and perfected over, hundreds, if not thousands of years. That's very, that's very skillful, and ideally we would adapt that to our lives in a very intentional way. And so that's where values comes in and gives us a kind of path. And for me, the thing that's most interesting to me is to really talk to people about what their values are and then find a path that fits for them, a sort of unique or custom individual path. And we can train ourselves to do that. You don't need a teacher to help you find a path. I don't know of a lot of circumstances where people truly do it on their own without the help and support of someone who's been there before, in large part because they can just save a lot of time by saying, okay, that's a little bit of a distraction, or this is a very important aspect that you're looking at that might seem very minuscule at the beginning. Like, do you notice that, you notice the mind making sound and then that turned into words? It was like, and it like became a thought. That is very, very, very important. And you might think, well, that's okay, that's just another detail. I noticed that, but then there's this really cool thing over here is all like really psychedelic and weird, and that's very cool. And they might be equally as important, and we might miss that without the guide of someone who's been there before, who's gone through the material. So that's what I would generally say. That would be my overall answer to that. Artie Casadio says, it's my second time here. Welcome. Although I got here at the end last time, so it's from my perspective, it's your first time here because we didn't get to welcome you last time. So welcome, Artie. As being your first time here, we have a special way of welcoming folks, as you will see going as we unfold here. We really appreciate you coming. Great to have you here. Welcome, welcome. And we love doing a little welcome sesh. Some colorful emojis for you here. Welcome. It's very nice to have you here. Lovely as always. This is one of my favorite things. It's always fun when everyone just sort of bombs whoever's new, and especially if somebody's new to meditation in general. That's a fun way to say hello. Always love that. Welcome. Very much great to see you here, and I like that Gene always has the cool cats. That's Gene's signature emoji bomb. So okay, so that's my question on paths. What else? Next question here. See, I feel like it's so much fun when I have like specific questions to work on. It's like really fun. Okay, benefits of different paths. The multiple self model. Okay, so I'm glad it was a fun welcome here, Artie. So real quick, the multiple self model. So this tracks to some degree pretty closely with what's called internal family systems, but there are some key differences, especially that we focus on the meditative and the personally developed skill side. Meditation is often a skill that we develop on our own, so that's part of where we there's a difference there. So the general premise in Buddhism is that self as an experience can arise, but that experience says that it's more solid than it actually is. It's a kind of hologram, and it says, I am real, and I need to be defended, and I need to fight through the world. And it's helpful to know that that is just another set of sensations, and experientially to watch it arise and fall apart, and in this way, it's very, very powerful, because all of the pains and difficulties that come along with having to defend a self, having to be a self that does and achieves and these kind of things, just goes out the window, at least for a moment, and maybe many moments, when we see that that is just a fabrication. The thing is that it's not actually that we have just one self that does that. We have many selves, and we know this because we have a self that wants to do something ambitious and another self that just wants to sit on the couch, or a self that is easily kind and gentle to other people, and another self that like gets really upset easily and triggered and just these kind of things. And we tend to treat that as it's just one self, or it's just me, and these things are happening to me. But often if we look at it, we wouldn't make the decisions we made, especially if around overwhelm, if it weren't for the fact that this whatever self is arising at that point seems to take over. So the multiple self model is based around this premise that these various selves will arise, take over, tell us that they are the one true self, and that the only ordering structure that is important, that matters, is their view of reality. And they will stomp on people or be rude or be unkind in all of these different ways, because their reality is the one true reality, and all the others are silly. And you can actually tell this right now, because the self that you're experiencing right now, if you kind of zoom in, okay, this is me. It will tell you this reality that you're seeing, its perspective right now is the one reality. This is my reality. It's always been like this. Ever since I was a little kid, this is the one reality I've been looking from, this perspective. But we know that we've had many times in our life where we've viewed it from a different perspective. Maybe we've been, the dramatic examples are feeling hopeless, or where we, are like so frustrated that like everything we see is totally frustrated. And from this perspective of this self, those seem like kind of secondary. Like, I mean, I get it, but those aren't the real view of reality. This is the real view of reality. But each self comes with that piece of information. And when we slip into that other self, whichever one it is, it will say, no, my view of reality is the one true view of reality. And we get an amazing boost in our transformation experience by realizing that these selves will arise and take over. And often the actions that they're taking are very misguided, but it's very powerful to recognize that their motive or their drive underneath all of this is actually wholesome. So the part that, this is something true for me, the part that will be controlling and like, things need to be exactly this way and everything should be exactly aligned and blah, blah, blah. That part is, its execution might be very annoying to people, because they might say, no, actually, we don't need to align this thing spatially with this other thing. It's actually fine. It doesn't matter. But to that self, it needs to happen. And that self, its wholesome sort of underlying drive, at least for me, is about safety and wanting to create safety in the world. And it sees that if it arranges things in a certain way, that'll feel sort of safe somehow. I think that people who have obsessive thoughts, often this can be, or obsessive compulsions, this can be the case, that they feel like if they operate in a certain way or do these certain repetitive things, that the system can then finally rest in a certain way. And that's some part taking over, saying this is the way things need to be. I need to find peace through these actions. So it's helpful to notice the underlying drive or wholesome motive of that part, because if we can meet that wholesome need, then it won't act out in all of these strange ways, from like addiction to being unkind to people, these kind of things. So that is very important. That's very essential, is to find what these underlying needs are. And, for that, I recommend, our multiple self meditations, or work with a internal family systems or internal family systems therapist who will focus on this very specifically, if that's something that's available for you. Julie says, I love your multiple self model IFS material. I'm interested in paths that don't just promote insight, vipassana, awakening, etc., but also facilitate emotional processes and healing and integration. Yeah, to me, that's the golden sort of combination, is things that combine the two. And for me personally, I think I'm so interested in insight that I want them to be one thing. I want the insight practice. This is what we did in meditation today. I want the insight practice to lead me to greater fulfillment emotionally. I want the insight practice to lead me to being able to relate to other people in a kinder, more open way. So that is a lot of the process of the meditation, is to use the tools of insight to guide me in the direction that I want to go personally. And for me, I hotwire that for other people. This is how I centrally organize things for folks, is through values. And for me, if we pursue, I want to live as close as I can to my values, and I want to use the insight tools to get there, we get rid of this tendency to hope that meditation will somehow bleed out accidentally and to affect these other parts of our lives. So this is an important thing here. I'm going to I want to leave a little signal here for my folks who are doing our video editing here. So there can be this imaginary thing, or this imagined idea, that if we do X, or if we do meditation, whatever it is, it's going to bleed out and affect our lives positively. And that is true. It probably will. However, the translation from observing my breath to being kinder in the world is a bit of a leap. And while that might happen, it's very much not guaranteed to happen, and the likelihood of it happening is much less than if we use meditation that is specifically geared towards those skills. So in that example specifically, to be kinder in the world, what would I promote as an object of meditation? Well, I would promote a connection with kind awareness, which is cultivating a sense of awareness that is actually kind and welcoming, really getting connected with that. Watching my own emotional experience, generally getting acute with my emotional sort of ups and downs and various flavors where it's happening, intensity levels, starting to see if I could read that in other people, starting to see if I could notice their emotional experience. Am I able to reflect that back to them live? So noticing my own emotional experience in the present moment, their emotional experience, seeing if that actually translates. Is my reading correct? Hey, it seems like you might be feeling a little sad. Is that true? What's going on? These kind of things. And so that meditation is going to have many of the same benefits as just watching the breath, but it's also going to have the benefits of making my relationships better. And for me, the question always comes down to, why are we seeking awakening? Like, what is our purpose for having an awakening experience? What's our purpose for advancing our meditation practice or our concentration? Generally, I would speak for most people, but tell me if I'm incorrect, it's to have a more fulfilling life. It's to have these cool experiences, but the cool experiences aren't really that valuable if it doesn't have an impact on our life. We could, I went to this guided meditation once by someone, and they were like, breathe really hard, like huff and puff, like, and then press on your eyes and look at the pretty colors. And it was like, I was like, this is crazy. Like, and everyone was into it because in the moment, it's like, wow, this is different. But my question was like, how does this impact your life? Like, how could this possibly affect the things that are important to people? So that is my spiel on the potential benefits when we talk about different practices. Why is it that we want to pick meditation objects that are specific to the direction that we want to go, rather than just picking a generic object? The good news is all of the skills that you can develop with a generic object, you could develop with a specific object. It's just more specific. And but most teachers will say, hey, listen, you could use any object of meditation for this. I'm going to use the breath because it's simple, it's what I used, and everyone can notice it. And that little caveat, you can use any meditation object, I would just suggest everyone take advantage of that, because just watching the breath, honestly, it's like one of these things where I want to shake people, where they're like, oh yeah, watch the breath, that's cool. Or like, oh, I need more relaxation. And the idea that meditation is about relaxation and the breath is like the idea that sports is about sitting in a bleacher, It's like, what? Like, yeah, I mean, sure, that's important, but and people are like, okay, anyway, we're done talking. Like, this conversation is, we've transitioned to some other subject. I'm like trying to get across to people that there's this universe of exploration that we really often tend to ignore. So that is my spiel. Hopefully that was helpful and interesting. So folks, any other questions, interests, curiosities, this kind of thing? What else is coming up for folks? If nothing, no pressure. We can slide away into the fun, enjoyable experience of being alive. Okay, folks, so today is Wednesday. We're going to be back here on Freestyle Friday. What that means is Friday comes, you guys, whatever's happening in your practice, in your life, difficulties, challenges, interests, these kind of things, you're going to come on the stream. You're going to do it. God damn it. No. If you're here, hop on, tell me those things. List them in the chat, and I'll create a freestyle meditation based on addressing those specific things for you. We do that on Fridays. So that should be fun and exciting, as always. So come and join us. It'd be great to have you there. And I have a wish before we go. I answered questions I didn't even know you had. Well, that's excellent. I'm glad that was fun. I have a wish for you. The wish is this, that in this particular moment, you can observe your current experience. Notice the richness. This is one of the things that I find very powerful. The complexity, richness, the layered nature of this sensory experience that you're currently engaged in. And today what we talked about in the meditation was that the intensity of challenging emotions is only intense for part of us. Now, there's an implication in relation to the multiple self model, but we can just think of it as a part. So part of us sometimes gets overwhelmed. Part of us sometimes gets, life is very hard. And in how we train ourselves out of just shrinking around that part and thinking it's the entire world is in this particular moment, right now, just to attend to our sensory experience, attend to what it's like happening right now, recognizing that each experience we're having is just simply part of this larger overall experience. There's the sense of the body, a sense of seeing. We have a sense of time and space. Our emotions arise, a sense of the things we need to do today. And each of these exists on their own scale, their own level of proportion. And what happens is we get sucked into that small scale or that small proportion without seeing the larger context. So in this moment, noticing this larger context, all of these senses mixing, dancing, coming together in this form of a human body-mind. Billions of years of evolutionary and biological technology expressing itself like water flowing at the end of a hose out into the form of an ordinary human body-mind. The complexity and possibility of existing and being alive right here on full display. No level of 3D graphics, no level of computer animation or beautiful directorial genius can show us this level of depth and richness that we have available to us right now. So in connecting with that, in this particular moment, knowing that this is the great teacher that will show us how we can bring this practice into every aspect of our life. Folks, as always, practice well. Take care of each other. Have fun. We'll see you very, very soon.